Welcome back to the Urban Monk Podcast. Dr. Pedram Shojai here today with Dr. Matt Wilkinson, CMO, Chief Medical Officer of a company called Wooby.io. What are these guys doing? They're helping veterans. Veterans have it hard. Veterans have served their country, and veterans, a lot of times, are getting screwed by the system that they served. And so this is internal ranks doctor who served for years himself and had a lot of issues with getting his own benefits and basically helped himself navigate the waters. On the other side of it, he's like, man, I'm going to help other guys do this. And so if you are a veteran, if you know someone who is a veteran, this is for you. Enjoy. Doc, it is good to see you. Thank you for being here on the show.
Thanks for having me, Pedram. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, look, I'm a huge fan of what you're doing. This population that you're serving is underserved, to say the least. These are people that worked so hard to fight for our freedoms. Just today, the time of this recording for people, and this will come out afterwards, but the time of this recording, there was a huge military parade in China where Xi and Putin and all these guys are getting together saying, screw you, America, we're coming after you, the new axis of power. So there's real geopolitical crap happening. So I'm not one of these guys saying, oh, we don't need an army. We got to defend what's right and we got to do our thing. But a lot of these guys coming out are getting hammered, and in more ways than one. And once they're done with their service, what's happening is really embarrassing. And so that's the fight you're fighting now. So I'd love to just get a little bit of your background and how you got into this fight.
Absolutely. And you're dead on. Again, I was in the military for over 10 years, 4 years of reservist duty. But to start in the middle, and everyone that served, it's not a cliche. We take an oath to support and defend the Constitution, the Republic. And we have people that have gone entire generation after generation that hasn't had to be drafted and haven't had to be, brought into service. They volunteered because they're patriots. We may disagree individually on topics or politics, but every single person served is a patriot one way or another. So I come from a long line of military veterans. My grandfather was a frozen chosen Korean War veteran. His brothers were in World War II, Pacific Theater Marines. So when I was young growing up, I looked up to those guys and legends. One of them had won the Medal of Honor, my great uncle in Korea. He's a hero. He's a hero in his town. He's a hero in the family. And that's what I wanted to do. My birthday is actually coming up. It's 9/11. So I was 14 when the towers fell in 2001. And just like everybody else, it shapes you. But when you're a 14-year-old young testosterone head playing sports, love America already, and that happened, it just clicked a light switch. It's like, that's what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to go be a Navy SEAL. I'm going to go be a sniper. I'm going to go forward and kill terrorists, right? For America, right? Fight our enemies. And I'll never forget, I reached out and went to my grandfather's house, and everybody's obviously talking about 9/11 and what had gone down. And I told him Papa Wally was his name, Walter Wilson. I said, Papa Wally, like, I know for a fact I'm going to enlist. I'm probably going to either go Navy or Marines like you. And that's what I want to do. And he was a Southern guy from Alabama. He was living in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the time, but I'd never seen him snap at me. He was mad. He goes, you're not going to go enlist. You're in private school. You're going to college. And he like cussed me kind of in a way. It scared the crap out of me because this is a hard man that never talked like that. So I did what I did, like any smart person would do. I listened. So I finished high school and got into college, and I was real fascinated with sports and things like that. So I went to med school. I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. So I ended up taking a scholarship to go join the Navy to pay for my school because at the time, I didn't come from anything of money. So like $250,000 in debt was super scary for me. And also I wanted to serve. So I joined reserves, went to school in Johnson City, Tennessee, at Quillen College of Medicine. Loved it, real rural, primary care focused. But again, I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. That's what I loved. I love fixing problems. That was really just the root of what I did, like using my hands, 3D spatial stuff. Got to the Navy all gung ho. We actually had a boot camp sort of thing, like an officer development school in Rhode Island one summer. And I'm thinking military, I'm training for it. I show up to Rhode Island it's called an ODS. It was a dumbed down version of OCS for officers entering. And it was a joke. Everybody was out of shape. It wasn't real serious. Just here's how to wear a uniform and not embarrass yourself. So started off with not what I expected. Got in, ended up getting into orthopedic surgery through the Navy, went down that pathway and worked real hard. But I spent a lot of my time at large MTFs, the large hospitals in the Navy, and just really got to see Navy personnel every day, all day, and Marines and airmen in our area. And I was in Portsmouth, Virginia, Virginia Beach area. And I was a problem solver. I was in residency doing orthopedics, and things happened. I went through a hard time in my life where I had a little bit of a political witch hunt against me in a way, and marriage fell apart, a bunch of trouble, right? And I struggled. And I got basically at the tail end of my residency, got tapped, of course, to go out and do general medical officer tour. So basically go with a forward deploying unit to go be their primary care doctor as an orthopedic surgeon, nearly fully trained. So I was bummed. I was licking my wounds, upset, frustrated, knew the politics of the Navy, how it went against me. And I promised myself that even through all that hard time, that I wasn't going to take it out on my job and my patients, right? So I show up to East North Carolina with the Marines at Cherry Point, North Carolina, near Camp Lejeune too. And for the first time in my life, all of a sudden I'm a primary care doctor. And people coming in for sick call, their basic care, and I log in to my computer to look up their medical record. And the first thing I notice is there's nothing here. Like, it's about what vaccines they got. There's no chronic diagnoses yet. The person telling me the problems had a bunch of problems, right? And nothing was documented. So I said, well, the first thing I need to do is get you past medical history and get this down, start working up problems one at a time. Knowing my role as a primary care doctor at that point with all the orthopedic training, that I may not solve these problems, but at least let's get some workup going. And it was over and over again. And I just saw kind of the problem with the record system to start. Then I noticed, and really in my first month or so taking over those duties, and no one taught me about this stuff, right? It just fell in my lap. We had these lists of people that were basically getting medically separated from the military, right? They call them med boards. So they have to go and present a case to the higher ups in Washington and BUMED to say, hey, this sailor or Marine is broken. They need to be kicked out because of their medical, right? And that's a big deal because some people are playing the game a little bit, don't want to work, and they're saying, oh, my knee hurts, I can't deploy, right? Because it's whether you're deployable or not. And that was my job to say, are you fit for full duty or are you not? And there's some grace period to heal if you have an injury or something like that, limited duty. But really, those boards determine those people's fate. So that comes the package with medical evidence, with recommendations, basically saying, hey, we don't expect this person to get back within the next 12 months to full duty. We need to separate them. So then it basically would fall on a board of people who never talked to this person deciding, well, are we going to give them retirement or not? Are we going to give them a pension and say that they got hurt in the military and we're going to take care of them, or screw them? We're basically going to kick them out administratively. They get nothing. And so I realized that very quickly, like that's a huge deal in your life. And maybe I was a little more susceptible to it because I'd been through some hard times, but I cared. I'm like, this is a big deal. So I started on the front end before I would submit those packages. And this is where it all started, where I am now. That's why it's important, is you have to have objective evidence and you need a subjective story to advocate for somebody. You can't show up with nothing and expect higher powers to give you the benefit of the doubt to say, hey, this person deserves a pension, even when they did. The other facet was I noticed that the system rewarded squeaky wheels. And not to pick on anybody, but there were some people that clearly didn't want to be in the military. It was obvious. You ask them, they don't want to be in the military. They're stuck. They hate their life. They want out. And I treated them just like everybody else. But then you had the blue collar, the hard workers, the good ones. They didn't have time to go to the doctor. They had issues. They had serious back issues. They had radiculopathy. They had mental health issues, but they didn't want to talk about it because if they did, they were worried they were going to get kicked out by this system and screwed over. They wanted to work, but they're working themselves into the ground like a burnout situation. So it started there because I felt this tug on my heart that don't shortchange these people, because it'd be easy just to kind of punt them down the road, spend 5 minutes, check the right boxes, move on and go home or to the next person. And I spent more time with them. I'd take senior enlisted folks and say, hey, Master Sergeant, you're complaining of some pretty serious problems, but there's nothing on paper. How about instead of just running through the motions here, give me 3 or 4 months and everything's slower in the military because it's the government. Let's start working up these problems. Let's get x-rays for the first time. Let's actually get you to PT for a real reason. Now, I was lucky because I was an orthopedic guy, so I knew the details and they mattered. Hey, listen, you don't want to go to a mental health care provider because you're worried about the stigma. Let's just talk about it. So I was basically playing therapist for people, even though I wasn't. But these people just wanted to talk about their marriages, talk about the burnout, their anger, frustration, PTSD stuff. So it came out. They trusted me. I didn't walk in, and I was a lieutenant commander. So I outranked them by a lot, even the senior enlisted. They're scared of you, right? And that was the big thing I saw as a problem, was that why would the patients trust their doctor when literally they had all the power over them to really mess them up in their career? So I tried to break that down really quickly by wearing scrubs, talking normal, not being, I didn't need my ego stroked. And you'd be amazed, like people would break down. So hardcore killers, more or less, break down and thank me for listening and talking and helping them, getting them on disability ratings and getting them out of the military the right way with evidence. And it always stuck with me. And I got out after 10 years. I was tired of the politics, was going to go back and finish the last year of my orthopedics residency. And I was burned out. And I realized, I'm like, I've got gray hair now. I'm tired. I've always been an athlete, high functioning, get her done, go through orthopedic residency my whole life. I can work 100-hour weeks. It's nothing, but I didn't want to move again. And I was tired. And I just said, I prayed and I said, what do I do? And really the resounding, may think I'm crazy, but almost heard it, was just be still for 2 seconds. Just stop steering for a couple minutes. And I did. And my goal was to take 6 weeks off. This is about 2 years ago. And then find an orthopedic program that wants me and get back into that rat race. And in that time, I got my own VA disability rating. Because when you get out, you out process, you list all of your aches and pains and problems in your medical record, and you just submit it and you do what you're told, you go to exams, and then the VA adjudicates what percentage problems you have disability. I don't like the word disability, but they give you a rating. And based on that rating, you get different benefits and secondary pension. And I was shocked at that system myself because I didn't try to game it or fluff it up. I just showed up, did what I was told, and I saw screw job it was. Because common sense things, like I had a fracture that I was literally in uniform, didn't make a big deal about it, but got seen, treated for it. It was in my medical record. It was clear as day, like that's a service connected injury, obviously. But the VA said, well, it's not service connected. And it was just baffling to me. So I started reaching out. This is after I'm out, to some of my old patients and people I took care of that I knew real well, my colleagues who were my patients. I was their doc. And I said, whatever happened to your VA rating? What did the VA ever do with you? I told them my story. Like, this is crazy. Like, they made a big mistake on mine, or just, I don't get it. And that's how it all started. I just started helping my friends, people I knew, friends of friends, advocating for them, writing letters, summarizing their medical records, and then arguing to the VA, like, hey, here's this guy telling their story on paper. I'm a physician. I've been their physician. Here's their deal. Like, you need to revisit this. And it was super successful. Quick turnaround rates. People were sending me bottles of high-end liquor saying, thank you so much. Like, I got 100% service connected. Like, I can go to school now. Like, I don't have to have a job, but I want a job. Like, my life's changed. Thank you. And of course, in that situation, like, I got this buddy. Can you help my buddy? So, it's like, well, I like doing it, but not that much. I probably should look into the industry. And what do I charge without ripping people off? Because I just felt strange, and I had no business background, right? In medicine, they don't teach you anything about business. And I think that's by design, because they obviously want good, loyal workers, not someone that understands the industry. What would you do with anything? You Google something when you don't know it, right? So I literally got on Google, was like VA disability company, something archaic like that. Nexus letter cost. And a nexus letter is something that connects somebody's in-service activity to a problem, and basically says, hey, it's caused by the military, either directly or indirectly. And immediately I realized there's a whole side industry of companies that are selling this stuff. And I looked into it, called a couple just to know, what do you do? And it was all law firms. And I got real bad taste in my mouth and real shady practice. And it just seemed like, they call them claim sharks, and they were. Like, doctors weren't running these things. These were law firms that were just outsourcing the PAs and even whoever, nurse practitioners, and nothing against PAs or nurse practitioners, but it was very peripheral. So I said, well, this is not what I'm going to do. So what I did was I just kept helping one at a time, charging nothing basically. And then one friend said, hey, there's a guy named Cole Tenney, and he's in California. Matt, you're opinionated. I know you well. You're going to love this guy. He's starting a company that does this, but he's not like the other people. He's like you. He hates that system. Was in the military. He gets it. He's starting a company. At the time, it was called Mill to Millions, later rebranded as Wooby. And a Wooby is basically like the comfort blanket for the military. You get given when you go deploy, and part of your pack is basically a poncho liner. It's like the comfort, keeps you warm. It's the best thing you ever get issued, frankly. So everybody knows if you're a Marine or in the Army or in the Navy, a Whoopie is like the good piece of gear. It's got your back, keeps you warm. And I called Cole thinking, I'll believe it when I see it. He's probably just trying to make money and do the thing. And it was exactly like my friend had told me. We talked for 3 hours about everything, our experiences, just everything under the sun. And at the end of it, it was like, all right, our ethos are aligned. What are we going to do? You help me, I'll help you. Let's build something. And 2 years later, now I'm looking not in the operating room as an orthopedic surgeon, even though I still love that life. Now we're a growing, even beyond an upstart company called Wooby, that we take these principles of putting people first and using real strategic rationale to advocate for the truth and the reality of situations for their VA disability benefits. So now I think we have over 1,000 clients. We're growing rapidly. We rely a lot on not only Gestalt and experience, which is important, but also predictive analytics. We're way ahead of the curve with tracking results from VA and really streamline the process to get after the system and get people what they deserve. So that's what I do right now. And that's how I got there.
I'm curious how in the healthcare industry, the big insurance policies, they got bean counters they've hired basically to beat up on doctors, not pay claims and minimize the outlay. And so there is a nefarious element to that. I'm curious whether or not you've run into kind of a nefarious kind of Doge type of bean counter element within the VA, or is it just a bureaucratic monster with tentacles that just can't get shit done? You're in there digging every day.
Absolutely. And one of the things I love about what I do more so than any other point in my life is I get to be myself and say what I think, mean what I say, and that's it. I could always be wrong. What I see is, like you described, obviously it's a huge bureaucracy filled with good people. There are good people in the VA. There's good providers. There are great hospitals, great care, people that really do care about doing the right thing. That being said, the institution is set up to minimize ratings, the way I see it, right? I don't work for the VA. I wish the VA did what we do and we wouldn't have to exist. That'd be fine. They cheat people left and right. They minimize issues. I mentioned my issue. I've now seen probably 10,000 different ratings decision letters. So when you make a claim, the VA will then output an email and send the veteran a ratings decision letter. And
Mhm.
I've been around long enough to know when something is gun decked, when it's copy pasted, when it doesn't make sense, because I actually read the details and that comes from my background. Like the details matter. So I read these things and I scratch my head. I'm going, I don't know how they came to this rationale. It's either they made a mistake, maybe they didn't look at something. Like literally, they didn't look at this person's medical record or their paperwork or their supporting documents, or it's slanted against them, or maybe all three. And again, I just call it like I see it with the pattern and ask anybody that's been through the system, any veteran. That's why these fringe companies exist, because there's a problem. Veterans are clearly not getting the ratings they deserve. We're not trying to create something out of thin air. We're taking real documented problems and fighting for them. And you don't need a lawyer to do that. You just need somebody that knows that system well and can argue the medical evidence and procure the medical evidence. Because a lot of people, like I mentioned before, they didn't have primary care doctors like me, and kiss my own ass here, but they didn't. That system was terrible. They may have had severe mental health issues or severe problems in service that weren't documented. And most people, when you go through that system, it can take, previously 12 months to get a return on that claim. And again, riddled with errors and malfeasance, in my opinion. People that go through that, especially veterans who are already burned out, don't trust people or the system for a good reason many times. They don't ever want to go back through it. And I think that's by design, because they know that if they can just throw some change, the VA can throw some change and some low ratings, that these people, I'm sure those bean counters, like you mentioned, realize that this system, we have a 20%, I'm making that number up, refile rate. Okay. So the VA, since the new administration's come in, they're doing better at being quicker, but that's not really the problem. It's more systemic. It's not about denying people quicker. It's about having a system that actually looks at the ratings. So in that system, I can tell it's run by legal forces, not so much doctor run, physician led. groups, there's probably an administrative desk jockey with a script who takes these claims with a lawyer looking over their shoulder, being told what to do. So there's raters and reviewers. And that's where what we found with our company is that we want to submit claims for people that are actually going to succeed. So we're taking data in and go show, well, what works? There's high yield issues that get a lot higher ratings for whatever reason. So we focus on trying to combat the system, but with logic. Not, I've learned long enough ago that when you try to change the system and be an idealist, you either just wind up frustrated, nothing changes, or you wind up dead. I realize there's a lot of money at play. Last year, I believe their fiscal year, and the VA publishes a lot of this stuff. They paid out, I believe, $7 billion in VA disability benefits as far as compensation. I know for a fact through some inside sources that if they don't spend that money, they get to reallocate it. So it's not a baseline budgeting issue where they want to spend what they're allocated. They literally have a bias, internal and inherent, to not give ratings so they can reallocate it. So again, call it like it is. It's riddled with problems. So we try to get after fixing the problems one person at a time.
Yeah, listen, if I was that organization and I had that deal, I would hire a guy to hire a department to say, listen, this is found money, go get it. And the challenge is on the other side, you have parasitic law firms that are just trying to juice a system. There's the teat of the federal government, let's go get it. And I'm sure there's a cohort of lingering losers who are trying to fake injuries, be exploiting the system. But I'm assuming you would agree that the vast majority of these men and women served their country honorably and did take injuries and are kind of not getting a fair shake. And that's why you're doing it.
Absolutely. And that's one of the first things that I do when I talk to people. We do nightly question and answer sessions at least once a week with me, but also our other team members. So they're talking to me. And one of my tenants, it's a partnership with them, is we tell the truth. You tell me the truth. We're not going to play that game. We're not ambulance chasers. We're not playing that game. We're not lawyers. I can read and write like a lawyer, but I'm not a lawyer. I have ethics, and everything we do is above board. And I make that very clear to them. And I tell them my background, just like I told you, I'm here to fight for the people that kept their mouths shut because they realized the system was against them. Well, they end because they were scared to talk about suicidality. They were scared to talk about anger and homicidality because naturally you're going to get kicked out of the military if you do that, but it doesn't mean the problem's not there, right? You don't want to talk about your terrible hip pain because you're not going to go on that deployment that you want to go on, that you know you need to go on because of a sense of honor. And I take care of everybody, but at the same time, I set the standard and we set the standard at Wooby to do it the right way. And that includes with our clients, because that's a big deal to me, because that's what started all this, was fighting for the guys who are getting screwed over, not trying to squeeze something out of nothing. I'm amazed at how many people, as we've grown, have similar stories of just almost like an exhale when they talk to me, right? Like they've wanted to say this for 15, 20 years. I've talked to Vietnam veterans all the way to GWAT veterans that when they get done telling me what's up, and it's, yeah, we'll start piecing it together, not making promises to these people like the law firms, because that's another huge caveat of what I do differently. Props to the team at Wooby. When I came on board, now I'm the chief medical officer with them. They took what I said to heart. And I said, one thing I never want to be is a document factory. I want to know these people. I want to talk to these people. I want to tell them the truth instead of, because what most of the law firms do, and I'm sure there's other models out there, but the ones I saw when I researched, and I don't look now to other companies because it's just too depressing to the law firms, they charge a back pay system based on percentages. Just like if you were a trial lawyer, you want to drag something out because you're getting paid for hours billable, and you're taking a huge sum because you're incentivized to slow play it. Well, what these people do, I presume, and what these contracts are, because clients have told me, because some of them have been with other companies, is they slow it down so they get a large back pay, but then they take 50%, let's say, for example, of whatever that person got paid by the government for like a year. So they're constantly taking more money from these veterans. And so there's a negative stigma, even by the federal government, say, well, this is a problem in the veteran community. And I would agree. Yeah, absolutely. People that are doing that and extorting, and I'm talking a claim where you get an increase to 90%. Sometimes these people are paying $20,000 to law firms. It's insane. I told the guys immediately, and didn't have to tell them very hard because they all agree with me, Cole and Joe and our full team, is that we want to be a membership-based model. We want to tell people the truth. Sometimes these things aren't easy. There's no magic button, no easy, sneaky little copy paste document I give people. Everything is organic and created with evidence. And sometimes it takes multiple attempts, denials, different types of claims. So our idea was, and it's a little different, is that when you come on board with us, we will stay with you until you're done, until you tell us I'm good. And most of the time, it could be 100% permanent and total, meaning you don't have to go back through the system ever again. So it really incentivizes us to do the right thing, not just the quick thing to turn around revenue. And I think people are really happy with it because, again, it's an expectation management, just like if you were talking to a patient about an ACL reconstruction. It's very tempting to brag and say, well, I'm going to make you better than you ever were before. Watch this. You're going to rush for 2,000 yards next year. But the reality is, what if that guy gets an infection? What if that guy has stiffness? What if he never gets back to the field? You have to talk about the risks and benefits of anything as a physician. That's how I'm trained very well. And so with this, the same thing. I can't come to somebody and say, I guarantee you this is going to get 100% with this claim, because it's not true, because we're dealing with a variable VA system. One thing that Wooby does differently in this arena, which I'm super proud of, if you can't tell, is that we're honest with people and we keep them around and we do what we have to do strategically. So the other side is guiding people with evidence, right? We're not telling you to have these symptoms. You tell me in a review of systems when you come on board, you have those symptoms. We look into it. So it's really a more broad, thorough, 35,000-foot view of problems and going where logically and statistically the VA is going to be more favorable.
Love that. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. This is a tough one for everybody, our whole society, but for veterans in particular. PTSD and the stigma associated with it. These are tough. I mean, you mentioned these guys are killers, right? Like, these are tough men and women who have deployed and have a stiff upper lip and don't complain and are trained to do the job. But there is just so much they've gotten rattled. And post deployment, now they're getting screwed by the government, and now their life isn't working out. And when you have PTSD, you got all sorts of things that also wobble in your life. And so that care is critical. There's so much more available now in the realm of all of it. I mean, there's so many places we can go with PTSD treatments and novel
Right.
treatments that have come out. How do you get these folks to the place they need to be so they could mentally and emotionally be well enough to get back re-engaged in life?
It's tough. And I saw it when I was in, and again, coming from orthopedic surgery, where I never looked at a past medical history. I never talked about that stuff with patients. It was, what hurts you? How are we going to fix it? Right. So shifting from that mentality of easy problem, even if it was a difficult solution, to really complex problems. And to answer your question directly, I found, and it just fell into my lap, was be real with these people. Don't talk down to them. Try to be overly helpful. How do you build trust? Because that's, if you think about PTSD or really any mental health struggle, whatever name you give it, ICD-10 code, doesn't matter, because ultimately a lot of people, not everyone, but you have a little bit of shame component to it. You want to hide it. You want to suppress your problems. In the military, and America in general, and high functioning people, we suppress problems because you got to get through it. The military is just like the tip of the iceberg of that, because that's what you want in your service members. You want people to adapt and overcome and be resilient. And that comes at a cost. So I would always try, and still do, be human with them. Tell my story, my testimony, my struggles, while it may not be comparable to theirs. And to borrow some other quotes, like, your worst day is your worst day. Mine's mine. It's apples and oranges, but the truth is that everybody struggles. So it's creating the human element and just being yourself. And one thing I've always seen is there's kind of I guess what I would say is, but like a military misery complex. This is what got my mind around it when I was serving, was as primary care, especially the GMO, is there was always this constellation of symptoms, right? It's easy to throw a dart at a diagnosis, right? What is the treatment regimen opportunities for PTSD? Or what about migraines? Obviously, papers are written on that, how to treat it and standards of care. But I would see constellations of symptoms in all those realms. GI issues, right? Acid reflux, maybe some IBS type symptoms. People don't talk about that, obviously. Crippling migraines intermittently, poor sleep, maybe sleep apnea picture, but really just insomnia, chronic mental health care, severe issues that are being masked with alcoholism and just other dysfunctions that lead to cascade of problems. Thinking about musculoskeletal issues, right? When you're going through a hard time and everything falls apart, pain is subjective, right? So you look at an x-ray, you can't tell how bad that person is, or an MRI. That person may be a walkie-talkie, yet somebody with a relatively normal X-ray may be, in crippling pain. So I noticed that in the people that were struggling, their pain issues were higher. They had more back pain. They had weight gain. They had relationship problems, fatigue, poor performance, anhedonia. Like it was all together, and it would always boil down to this last kind of bit of. And what I saw throughout it all was they kind of lost hope along the way. Like it was just a hopeless burnout grind. And it was the same template in all these different people with very different issues and different people, but it was the same pattern. It was hopelessness, it was misery. And so I would try to just break in anywhere I could, not just treat the symptoms of it, but try to make an impact on the core of the problem. A no shit conversation. And that was the only time I ever used my rank on listen to me. I'm only going to give you one order. I'm your doctor. I get it, but I'm a lieutenant commander is don't quit. Like we're going to fight to get this stuff documented. There's another day. There's a door behind a door that you don't see. You're struggling. It's very real. I hear you, but I'm not here to coddle you and give you meds, right? Sometimes you need medications for these issues, therapy and whatnot. I'm not that guy. And so I was blessed because I wasn't that guy to treat them. I was the one to find the problem. And it was to talk to them real and say, hey, like some of this is out of your hands. You got to worry about things you can control, right? You got to break through. You got to press through and have optimism. So how do you find optimism in a load of shit, right? You have to find it. You have to talk to people. You probably do need to have therapy. So getting these people talking about a problem, because most of them would brush over it, right? They don't want to say that they've ever been suicidal. They don't want to say that they hate their life. And a lot of them do. And I hear it. I've been at a point in my life where I've been there and it's not fun to talk about. I speak from experience on that. You hide that stuff because you're going to get in more trouble. Your life's going to get worse if you go tell your chain of command that you don't want to do the same. And that's a shame. And I think it's hard because that's an institutional problem and a case by case thing. But once I get people that are out of the military immediately, it's like, let's get on with this. And I found that the VA disability benefits, like the compensation, that it's money. And I tell everybody this, money's not going to make you happy. It's not going to, like even more money, more problems, that kind of shtick. But the truth is that if you have a baseline social safety net that you have earned, not just feeding off the public and being a victim, that's another thing. I require no one is a victim. You are not your diagnoses. Just because you have PTSD doesn't mean you are a PTSD. Don't become just that stereotype. Overcome this stuff, right? And then I found that if people can get the ratings they deserve, it's almost like beating a gaslighting effect. You validate that, yeah, some stuff happened and like now I've actually compensated for it. I get educational benefits. And that's something too that a lot of people don't see is if you get 100% permanent and total from the VA, which we strive for with everyone, your family gets free healthcare through Champ VA. That's huge because that's what people care about. What am I going to do with my family? How am I going to pay my bills? You get a tax-free check so you can keep the lights on and have a place to live. You get great property tax exemptions in certain states. Just the benefit profile, not just the pay. I think people focus on the pay because it's so gaudy sometimes. But that's one of the ways I objectively try to instill hope in people. But then also temper it with, it's not going to make you happy. What are you going to now go do with your life? When you get a good rating in the VA and you get service connected, the answer is not then sit on your couch and rot away and smoke pot, right? I mean, you may smoke pot and sit on the couch some, but like go do something, be a better dad, be a better spouse, get some hobbies, go build a business, get a job. That's what I did when I got through and I had my educational benefits. I got my MBA. It's like, go build, strive for something because people, the suicide epidemic, people talk about it a lot. There's bracelets and 22 a day stuff. I'm glad there's awareness to it, but that's not fixing the problem, right? Buying a bracelet, raising a little money, throwing it. But what does the money go to? You got to help individuals. And I'm a firm believer that you save lives by them finding hope, right? I can't just say the right words to give you hope. You got to believe it. You got to have something to live for. And in our community, it's terrible rate of suicidality, whether it's carried out upon or not, and even homicidality. That's something people don't talk about. Is there's a lot of really angry people that have been mistreated and are just struggling with true mental health issues. You change that one at a time, and it sounds kind of obvious or cliche, but who's doing it? And buying a bracelet's not going to do it. I'm sorry for that, but you go help our people, and then that's one thing I love about what we do is The people that we see, I charge them all with go help our people. You don't have to send them to us to get VA disability. Teach them, like help them, go do your thing. It's like now you've gone through it. Now don't coast and never talk to anybody again. Go help our community because it's a community that struggles and a lot of lip service paid to helping our veterans and stuff like that. But you know how you help veterans is you talk to them and you provide them solutions to the problems.
Love it. The company is called Woobie, WOOBIE.io. If you or anyone you know is suffering from these issues in particular, sticky stuff is getting them stuck, go check it out. Go check it out, right? There's enough friction in life. Past memories, traumas, dramas, shrapnel, busted hips. I mean, there's so many things that already kind of suck. Not getting your fair shake and not being able to pay rent and keep the lights on is just insult to injury. So please don't be alone. Please don't be stuck in the wallow. There are people who care and people like Dr. Matt here who have dedicated their lives to helping. So seek out that help. And Lord knows, I mean, on the other side of this, there's a bright future, and guys like you are helping other guys who were like you.
Yeah, and it's my honor to do it, honestly. And again, if you'd have told me 2 to 5 years ago that I'd be talking on a podcast about VA, disability, and mental health, I'd have said you were crazy. But the Lord works in mysterious ways, and I'm very proud to be here, and I'm going to keep rolling down the road and do everything I can.
Appreciate it. Doc, thank you so much for the work that you do. I'll put links in the bio. Anyone listening, find it, wooby.io. Anyone you know who needs this, get them to it so they can get the help they need. Thank you.
Appreciate you. Have a good day.